So we just transitioned completely into summer. First day of summer was a couple days ago. And what better way to celebrate and craft for summer than with a tropical bundle, which is something we haven't done before. And we've got a floral piece here, and again, it contains a lot of tropical elements. So this will be great for those of you that enjoy tropical places or come from tropical places or currently live in tropical places. And you want to kind of create maybe a centerpiece for your table, a little gift for someone that maybe can't have live plants. There's so many ways and reasons you guys use these. I'm not even going to get into it, but without further ado, let's take a look at what I have here in front of me. Okay, so the planter is made up of 4 pieces like this, and keep in mind that as we're putting it together, it's going to take on this shape that you see here. And I've gone ahead and pre-folded everything just to save some time. And one little tip here is I've actually used the Silhouette scraper tool to give me better folds. Typically, you could use a bone folder. I just started doing this, and it does kind of help make things a little more crisp, especially when you're working on these foundational pieces, the bones of these structures. But again, keep in mind, that's the shape that we're looking for. Okay, so go ahead and grab one of your pieces and try to sort of get them in the position that they're ultimately going to sit in. And we're going to begin by gluing that large tab there to its neighbor. So grab your glue, and I'm going to put my glue on this tab here. So get your glue on that tab. I'm going to take my finger and just work that glue right out to the very edge. And I'll actually be able to use my table here to get these 2 pieces lined up. So just make sure that they're nice and lined up there, right up against the, right up to the edge. Just do your best to get that as accurately lined up as you can. Give it a press, and you can actually fold it over onto itself to check your work. The little tabs there should sit right on top of each other. Shouldn't be able to see one behind the other. Okay. So that looks like it's pretty good. Give that another press, open it up, and then we can work our way up to the next tab there. And that one's going to join straight up and down, so it's not going to be angled. So get your glue on that next tab. And I'm just going to dab that a little bit, get that glue out to the very edge, and just connect it with the neighboring piece there. I've got my finger behind the tab, and actually, because it's the first 2 pieces, you can kind of fold it onto itself. We're not going to get that lucky going forward, but that's okay. All right, so that looks like it's in place. Let's grab the next tab and get that ready to go. I'm going to move that out of the way so it's easier for me to kind of hold it. So go ahead and apply your glue to the next tab, and if possible, go ahead and work it out to the very edge there. There we go. Okay, and this is going to be an angled piece here, so go ahead and make sure that when you connect that, it's got that nice angle. The 2 edges should just meet up perfectly, and do your best to slide your fingers back there and push that tab up against the wall of the neighboring piece. Just be patient. Just hold it in place until it's fully set. Okay. All right, so that looks good, and can pull that piece down a little bit to make room for our glue bottle. And we're going to put glue on the small triangular tab there. And I'm going to dab that just a little bit to get that glue out to the edge. bring the other piece over, connect that, and just press and hold. Just make sure that that sets. Okay, so we're down to the last little section there, the last little tab. So I'll move that out of the way, grab my glue, and just apply the glue onto that tab. I'm going to run my finger across it, thin it out a little bit, get that glue out to the very edge, and then just connect it with the neighboring piece there. And that's going to be at a little bit of an angle. And just press and hold that in place until it sets. So there is one side connected to another side, and basically what we're doing is the same process a couple more times until we have the planter 100% complete. So go ahead and grab another piece, and just like we did the first time, we're going to begin with the large tab at the bottom. So apply your glue to that tab and try to get it out to the very edge if possible. Just going to make it look a lot more clean, just lightly dabbing it, kind of pushing it out to the edge, and just removing any excess glue, because that's going to make it a lot harder for us to get it to stick. Less is more. So go ahead and get that lined up as accurately as you can, and just push that tab into place. Give it a few moments, let it set before we move on to the next tab. Okay, that looks good. Now we can take this entire piece and just kind of fold it over to not only move it out of the way, but let our fingers have an easier time of accessing this little area. So get your glue on the next tab. I'm just going to dab it a little bit, get it out to the edge, and then you can fold it back over, fold part of it out of the way. There we go. And just press and hold that in place. Okay, so that one looks pretty good. We can fold that back, move it out of the way so that we can apply glue to our next tab here. And let's get that glue out to the edge. There we go. And just fold that over and connect it to that tab. You can move that out of the way so you can get your fingers in there a little bit easier. And just press and hold that until it sets. It's a pretty large tab, so give it a few seconds. Okay, so now we've got the little triangular tab there. So go ahead and apply your glue to that little tab. I'm just going to hit that with my finger a little bit, thin it out, and just get that connected. Okay, that should do it. And we can move on up to the final tab here. Grab your glue, apply, try to get it out to the edge if you can. And we'll have, at this point, 3 sections together. And there we go. Just make sure you get that aligned as accurately as possible. And just press and hold that in place. And there we go. We got 3 sides put together. Okay, so we've got 3 sides together. I'm just going to continue right on down the row here with our last section. And I'm gonna grab my glue, of course, starting with the same tab that we started with the last 3 times. We'll get this all glued down, and that'll create the main structure for our planter. Everything else after that is just kind of, well, it's overlays, and that's pretty much it. It's just overlays. Okay, so let's get this into place here. And again, it does help if that glue is tacky, because it'll let you get your initial hold fairly easily. And then you can stick your hand in there and press. And if you don't get it all, it's okay. We can always go back and do some painting, just as I did. But as long as we get it aligned nicely, it'll make the rest of the job easier for us. Okay, so on to the next tab here. Get that dabbed. Let's spread out a bit. Okay, and just nice and aligned there. Just like that. And I've got my finger underneath there, pressing up to help those 2 pieces kind of. And again, we can fold this back so that we can really get our finger in there a lot easier. Okay, so like for this next section, if we just fold this section above it back, we can more easily get our finger back here so that we can use those 2 fingers to kind of press the 2 pieces together. This makes it a lot easier. Okay, spreading that glue out to the very edge, and then again, if I have some excess glue, I'm gonna get rid of it because it's not helping. It's just making it take a lot longer for everything to set, and we don't want that. Okay, so you see how folding this back really helps get your fingers in there. Otherwise, you would need like 7 inch long fingers to get them back here to help you with this pressing process. Okay, so that looks good. Next one here. Okay. And just give that a press. Move that out of the way for the last tab. And then, of course, after we get this, we just have to join all the 4 sides together by repeating this process one more time throughout one side there. And there we go. Okay. So that's looking pretty good here. And let's see. Yeah, this may be a little trickier now because you really can't move things back. So if anything, we just have to do our best. All right, so let's get our glue on that first tab there and pop it right into place. And I've got my finger on the back side of this tab, and I'm just using my fingers here to kind of press up against the finger that's inside against that tab. And that seems to be working nicely. There we go. Now this is where what we're going to need to do is we are going to need to apply our glue from the inside. That's one option. Or we can use our little painting method. And I think that just might be easier. So it's up to you. I'll show you both ways, but here is my little scrap piece of paper with a little bit of glue. Now we're going to be gluing the tab to this piece here, so you can actually go ahead and just paint some glue onto that piece there, like so. And it's got glue on there now, so I can just take the tab, connect it, and press down. And that makes it a whole heck of a lot easier than trying to stick your glue bottle inside to get glue into those little nooks and crannies. Now this section here actually probably gives me just enough room to get my glue nozzle in there. So I can first apply some glue, and then with my little scrap piece of paper, I can take it and spread it around a little bit. Okay, if you get a little extra glue here or there, it's fine. We got panels that are going on pretty much this whole thing here, so it's not going to really cause that much trouble. Okay, so now I'm pressing down here, and I do have one finger inside pushing up. There we go. Just do your best to keep that as aligned as possible. Okay. All right, so that just leaves 2 more tabs, and I am definitely going to do my little painting thing here. I just think it's going to be a lot easier. So just throw a little bit of glue on the tip of this. And kind of spread it out nice and thin. And then I'm just going to paint it right on the, you could do it either on the tab or on the actual other side that doesn't have the tab. Either way, whichever side gets the glue, it's totally fine. There we go. Can get my finger in there, no problem. So that's good. Okay, there we go. And that just leaves our last little piece here, and hey, why not? Whatever works, whatever solution you can come up with to make the process easier for you. Okay, and again, I'm gonna put the glue on the top part here, not on the tab, and I get to go right up to the edge here and not worry about making a mess. So I'm painting glue on the inside of this section here, and then I'm just going to press that down right on the tab. And then that way I don't need to stress the piece by pulling it and tugging on it and potentially ripping it or bending it or warping it. And I'm getting the job done. Just getting some glue in that little section so that that tab can hold on nice and tight to the rest of the piece. And there it is. Okay, so we've got the basic structure here. So what we can do at this point is flip her over and find, there's two square pieces here. One of them has a tiny little L cut into it. That indicates liner. So you want to put that off to your side. We're going to put that inside this piece once all's said and done. And I'm just looking to see, okay, this is going to be my front. I think I did the best assembling these sides. So that's going to be my front. And what we want to do is adhere the square that does not have the L on it to this tab first. Really cake that glue on there. Pull that down so that I can spread that glue out to the very edge without it getting over onto the face here. Okay, and I put way too much on there. All right, so let's open this up, or not open it up, but flare it up. Get rid of that excess. And all you want to do is just line this up. This is a square at the bottom, so it doesn't matter which side you put it on. Just try to get it nice and centered as possible. And then you can put this down on your surface and press down to really get it to set more quickly. Okay, so there we go. Got with one side on, we can fold this over and we can put glue on the remaining tabs here. We have to do all 3 here in one shot. So get a little bit of glue on the meat of the this piece, and then one thin little line right off to the very edge. And I noticed that with summer here, humidity is up and the glue tends to not dry out and set as quickly. So there's definitely environmental and seasonal changes that will impact your crafting. All right, so we're gonna flare those up just a tad, bring that down, and then focus on just getting the side opposite the side where it was already glued lined up nicely. The rest of it should fall into place. And again, this is our base. Not many people are gonna be staring at this, so just get it nice and nice and aligned as best as you can, but don't stress out. And then you can flip it over and push down from the inside on those tabs that we just applied the glue to. And we'll check our work here in just a minute, just to make sure that everything looks nice and seamless. Okay, and wouldn't you know it, looks pretty darn good, okay? So in that case, go ahead and throw some glue on the tabs on the inside, just around the perimeter, maybe a little bit in the center. And then take your other piece with the little L on it, the liner, and just pop it right in there, right in the center. And that's going to help kind of stabilize this piece, make it a little more sturdy. Okay. All right, so next up is this little piece here. This is our little lip, and just need to glue that on. Just like we did with our bottom, I'm gonna start with one side and get that anchored, and then we'll do the other three sides. So just nice and thin. Now this piece, since it's so thin, just from experience, I've noticed that these sorts of pieces tend to warp the most. So go really thin with the glue on these little thin pieces. Get that nice and centered, just like that. And then just kind of go like this, like you're making a little pie crust. And that should do it. Okay, so just like we did with the bottom, just open that up for a sec, and let's get our glue on the remaining three tabs here. Just enough, not too much, not too little. Once you start doing this more and more, I think you'll kind of get the idea as to how much is too much, how much is too little. I can tell when I run my finger across these pieces by, I think maybe even the texture or the feel of how much glue is on there, and I kind of know just the right amount, and you will too. Okay, so flare those up just a tad, bring them down, and I would align the side opposite of the hinge side that we already have glued first. So make your pie crust on that side first, get everything nice and joined, and then quickly work your way around the rest of the sides here. We may need to go back in and add some extra glue in some spots if it's not completely sitting nice and flush, which it looks like I've got a few little areas that are like that. I do indeed, and that's okay. I got one little area here, so I'm just going to take a little bit of glue right on my little piece here and just pop it right between those two sections that need to be glued. Just kind of paint a little bit of glue there and then press that down. Just hold it for a few seconds while it makes that bond. And there we go. See, now it's nice and seamless there. Okay, now you can see the other side how, well, and I'm sure that's happened to you guys, and fortunately, you don't have to deal with it. Just throw a little bit extra glue on a scrap piece of paper, pop it right in between those two areas that are not sticking together, throw a little glue on there, and then just press that down and hold it in place until it sets. And while I'm holding that down, I'm going to throw a little more glue here on my little strip and paint this little area that also decided that it didn't want to play nice. And I'll press that down into place. And just hold that for a moment. This side, you can see how much more crisp it looks now. I still actually could use a little bit more right there. And that's fine. We will do that. Okay. Let me get that in there. You can see how easy that is and how much of a difference it makes. All right, well, I'd say well done on that. And we're gonna go ahead and grab our overlays for this. Okay, so we've got these four that are gonna go right here, right at the top, okay? And there is a nice even border that goes all the way around this little overlay. So just make sure you keep that in mind as you're applying. And we'll get that going. And I think because of this bundle, and I've never actually done anything tropical in my dining room, because my house is mostly, well, I guess it's kind of just, it's like a, how do you explain it? Oh, industrial country, I guess. So I don't have a lot of tropical things. They're mostly, you know, nature toned, a lot of reds, oranges, browns. But actually now I'm staring right at this and I'm seeing nothing but reds, oranges, and browns on this overlay. So you know what, maybe there's a, maybe it's time to do something a little tropical, or at least maybe in a bathroom or something. But either way, if not, I know a handful of people that would love something like this. Actually, I will admit that, well, for Father's Day, I hosted Father's Day here at the house, and my girlfriend's sister loved the Patriot centerpiece, so that thing is gone. I just gave that to her. She loved it so much, and well, I can't keep everything, so I did give that one away. But I'm sure there will be many more occasions where I have a dinner or even just have people over and they see a piece and they're like, wow, I really like that. So I don't always have someone in mind, but I'm sure that it will catch someone's eye. Okay, so that is there. Got that in place, okay. So that's the top part, and next what we can do is we've got this little band, these two little bands, and look for the little score mark there in the center, and fold it at the score mark, but also just fold it on top of itself, just to make sure that you've got it folded accurately and it's nice and symmetrical. Okay, that is the way to tell that you've got it folded correctly. Just going to make it easier for us. Okay, so that's going to go right here, like so, just like that. Okay, I probably would begin by just gluing down one side at a time. Okay. So let me get some glue on this piece, and I don't need to do a lot. I definitely don't want to put a lot of glue on this piece. I'm going to put it on my surface here on my table, and I'm just going to drop a few dots along the way here. But definitely make sure that you get some right at the very edge so that the edge doesn't come peeling off. And then what we can do is kind of position this right at the corner first and align it, move it up and down a little bit until it's nice and centered, and then just press that down right into place, like so. Okay, that looks nice. And now that the one side is on, you can kind of flip this over to reveal the back side here. And same thing, just gonna do some dots along the way here. And again, making sure that I get that glue out to the very edge there. And then it should just be able to take it and pop it right into place. Make sure it's nice and centered and that the very edge is nice and flush with the edge here. Okay, there we go. So that's looking sharp. And repeat the same thing with the other side. Now before we put glue on here, take a look at this and make sure that if you need to like flip it so that it meets correctly, because this side, it kind of doesn't match correctly there, okay? So again, that side doesn't match, so I'm just taking it and flipping it, grabbing the other side, and that side matches up nicely. So we want to make sure that we get the right side in the right place. So let's throw a little bit of glue on this little piece. Make sure we get that glue right out to the very edge, and if you notice that maybe you have a little too much in some sections, just hit it with your finger, smush it down a little bit so you don't make a huge mess. Okay, and again, I'm going to take this and just kind of push it up against the corner and then just lay that down. And just make sure that it matches up nicely with the piece that's already in place there. Okay, and then take a look on the other end here and make sure that that piece matches up as well. And that looks pretty darn good. Okay, whoops. So we'll just get some glue on the remaining piece here. Come on. And a little bit right to the very end. And just push that over. And there we go. It should meet up pretty much dead on. Perfect. Okay, so there we go. We got 2 tiers pretty much done. And next, we just have these pieces here, and I believe, no, they're not the same. Let's see. Okay, so there's 2 different sets of these, and the best way to explain it is that there's one set that have little points on the ends, and then there's one set where there's little humps on the ends. Okay, so you want to get the humps together and the ones that are kind of pointy together because they're going to go in different spots. The ones that are round that don't have the points are going to go here, and then the other ones are going to go on the bottom section. Okay, so I think the best way to do this would probably be to start with the small little area here. We'll get our glue on this little scalloped, as I'll call it, area. Make sure you get that glue out to the very edges. Don't overdo it. Okay, and because we don't have glue on this yet, we can just kind of push that up against the flat part up until we kind of feel that this edge meets up with the edge of the actual base or structure of our little planter here. And then once that's in place, we can take this and we can fold it back like that. And the most important thing here is just to get the glue up to the top and the very edges. And then we can do just a little bit here in the center. I don't want to overdo it. I'm using a bit of a thicker paper, so it's not going to warp on me, but I just try to be cautious of that. And you know what? I didn't let that bottom part set completely, so it kind of came off a little bit. I'm going to have to go back in there and fix that, but that's okay. I'll just hold that for a second. This is why it's important that we get the glue out to the perimeter here, because that's the part that really needs to stick. As long as that sticks, this part ain't going nowhere. Okay, so you can see here how that kind of lifted off, but we are smart and we can take a little bit of glue and just pop it right under there and paint it on these little areas that just didn't stick for me. And that was just my fault because I jumped the gun and wasn't patient. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I've got another little area here that again just didn't stick because I was rushing, so don't rush. Okay, so there we go. So that's that, and then again, so this was the piece that had the round ends. Okay, again, these are the pieces that have the little pointy ends, and that's going to go here, just below that, and it's going to kind of create this little pattern here. Okay, so we want to get that glued down there, and then we're just going to repeat that process all the way around. So I'll walk you through this, and then I think you could pretty much handle the rest of it. So just like I did with the top, I'm going to start with the little scallop section here. At this time, I'm going to try to get that glue all the way out to the very edge of those little, I'll call them scallop pieces. Okay, and get that nice and aligned with the section above, and just press that down. Just make sure that it's nice in the line there. Give that a moment to set before you go lifting it up and getting that other piece glued down. Okay, what do you guys think? You think it's ready? We'll see. Okay, so let's lift that up. I think it was ready. and work that glue right around the perimeter. There we go. A few little dots there in the center. And press that down. Nice and gentle. And just hold that in place for just a moment. Work your fingers around the perimeters where we put most of the glue so that that sticks nicely, and there you have it. Okay, so that is pretty much one side 100% complete. And as I mentioned, you're going to take and repeat that same process. The top section is going to have the piece where the little scallop pieces are not pointy at the end, and then the bottom piece is going to have the little point. Okay, so just as I did that one side, you're going to repeat that process on this side, and this side until we have it complete. All right, so I've got my planter all assembled, and I went ahead and cut a little bit of some florist foam, and the structure itself at the base here is 4x4. So when I cut it to about 3 1/4. I used my little grid here, just cut it with a knife, and cut it just so that it's just maybe an inch below the actual opening here. Okay, so that's all done. We can move on to the actual floral pieces here. And before we get completely into it, I'm just going to kind of go over and discuss what's what and how things are used, so that you can kind of get a mental idea of what we're doing. Now, this is the main little ginger plant. That's going to be the focal point of our little centerpiece, and you can see all the colors are, well, in this case, we did it in, let me see what we did this in. That was Doodlebug coral paper, so this is by Doodlebug. And I went ahead and inked this with a nice dark pink color. Okay, so anyway, one other thing too is everything except for, I believe these 3 pieces here have numbers on them, so it kind of tells you what order to go in, and we'll get into that. Let me see if so again, I already inked all these, and I used a technique that I will show you on some of the leaves. So I'm just going to move that out of the way for now so we can discuss the leaves. Okay, and I did a lot of pre-inking because the process is very monotonous and I don't need to show you everything. So in your stash here of these leaf pieces, you're going to have things that look like leaves, okay, and you're going to have things that look like this. And these are the little contraptions that we have that will help you, well, basically adhere the paper wrapped floral sticks to the actual leaves. Okay, so because there's so much surface area to work with, I used my, well, of course, as always, I used my little ink applicator, the cotton ink applicator. And then I also used this piece here to kind of do my little radial technique. I'll show you that in a second. But anyway, each of these little pieces is going to correspond to a piece here. So of course, we've cut these out of 3 different colors, which you probably will too. And the colors for these are going to correspond to the colors for these. Now, obviously, this one's a little bit bigger than this one. So we want to make sure that we use the bigger one for this, and then the smaller one for this, okay? Now this guy here, this super large piece, now, yeah, after I inked it, it really took on a whole different color, but this large piece is for this guy here, okay? So kind of keep that together. And then we've got this piece here, and of course this is gonna go with this, okay? So keep that together. And then we've got these 2 pieces here, and that's going to go with that one. This one's going to go with this one. And that just leaves this piece, and then one piece that I already completely assembled because it's, again, redundant. And I'll show you how I did that. But so there's this long piece, and then you've got a backing for it here, and then this piece and this backing for that one. Okay, so just wanted you to understand how everything works and what goes with what. Okay, but now let's take a look at what I've done with these pieces, and I'll kind of go through some of the things that I did to get the look that you see here. Now, first off, we kind of created the little veins in the centers of all of these little plants, okay? And that was a very simple process. I just took a Sharpie. If you've got some other markers or whatnot, feel free to use them. And you'll notice that on all of these pieces, there's a series of score marks in some areas, sometimes just at the bottom, sometimes at the bottom and the top. Like for example here, we've got a little score mark there and a little score mark there. So what I did was I just took my ruler and put it pretty much right up to it so I can still see it, because this thing is kind of, it's kind of thick. So I want to give it a little bit of room. And then I literally just start at the top, a very light pressure, use my ruler as my guide, and bam, there's my nice little vein in the center. Okay, simple as that. I'll do that one more time for you. Okay. Now this one doesn't have a score line at the top, but it does have a point, and I'm using the point as my guide. And then I'll align the ruler with the score marks as well as that point, just to make sure that it's nice and centered, just like that. I'll grab my marker. I'm barely holding it, I'm not even pressing down, and I'm just running it right along the edge of the ruler there for a nice perfect straight line. Okay, so that is what I did, and we literally did that to all of the greenery, obviously not with the ginger plant, just with the greenery. And then on top of that, we did run some ink. And again, for for the entire thing, I grabbed my applicator. And let's see here, for that one, it's key lime. We just did just a nice green. I used my dewdrop. This is Cottage Ivy. It's a nice deep green color. And I just went ahead and applied some of that right just to the very edge. Rub some of that off. And then I just kind of used a nice circular radial motion to apply the ink onto this piece. And I think I may have used a lot of that today, and it's not really giving me a ton of ink, so I can be confident that I can push down a little bit harder and it's not going to give me too much. But this is, I think, one of those projects where you can kind of let go a little bit and don't worry so much about over inking. It's a tropical plant, it's going to be very colorful, so I'm not really worried too much about overdoing it. I'm still going to try to maintain some control here, but if I get a splotch here or there that has a little bit more, I'm not going to worry about it too much. And I always tend to make the tips a little bit more, ink them a little bit more so they get a deeper color. Okay, and I'll just flip it over and just continue doing the same thing. So I literally did this exact same thing for everything in this project, even the little ginger plant at the top. Okay. And that's it. Again, inking is optional, but for something like this, if you're going to take the time to make it, may as well give it your all and really spend some time getting it nice and inked. Okay, this bottom part is probably not going to be very visible once we get everything inserted into the planter, but I'm not going to cut any corners here. Okay, all right, so I actually probably inked this one a little bit deeper than I did this one, but hey, that's okay. It's still going to look great. And again, I did the same thing with these guys here, and as you notice here, I didn't worry too much about coming in here too much. It's tough. I mean, you could technically, after using this radial method like that, you could take this off and, you know, use your finger to really get into these areas like so. But, you know, that's up to you. Overall, when I look at this piece, I like the way that the gradient and the inking sits on here, and I wasn't overly concerned about going in and getting all those little nooks and crannies. So if you feel like yours needs more or less, you know, go with your gut. Go with what looks good to you. Okay, so inking, we've got the little veins, and the process of actually getting these things onto our little floral stems is going to be the same regardless of the shape of this thing. So we'll take you through that right now. And let me just put my inks away so we don't make a mess. Okay, so get everything inked. Inking does take a little bit of time if you decide to go that route, but it's totally going to be worth it. Okay, so let's start with one of these guys here. Okay, now when Ron designed this piece, he did have a kind of a specific idea in mind when it comes to the way that the final arrangement is going to look. So there's a little bit of folding that we're probably going to do. Just want to make sure I'm getting the right pieces here. Folding of the stems that we're going to do just to kind of try to recreate that. But of course, you're welcome to style this any way you want. All right, so let's grab our floral stems. And these are kind of long, so of course I typically just fold them in half, and then either with some wire cutters, or the scissors seem, well, they worked last time anyway. Ow. But just get those cut in half. We don't need them to be super long. That should do. Okay, so the idea here is, now with this one here, what we're going to do is we're going to begin by kind of bending this stem a little bit, just to kind of get it trained, because these leaves are going to be kind of drooped over and hanging over a little bit. Okay, so we want to kind of get that ready. And with this piece, this little piece is the piece that's going to keep everything well glued. The stems are going to, this is going to be used to glue the stems to the leaves. And that's kind of how you want to fold them, almost like a little paper airplane. Okay, so the stem's going to go back here, like so. I need to straighten that out a little bit, just like that. Okay, and then that's going to get glued to the back side of our little leaf. Okay, and these little score lines here also will help you sort of just make sure that you're gluing this straight. Okay. And I would definitely glue it, I'd put just enough stem in here so that it covers this entire little area. That's going to help make sure that this thing doesn't droop too much, that it stays in place. So what I did with my first one is I just put a little bit of glue on the inside, and then I hit the glue on the little wings, I would call them, of our little piece here. Just going to hold this all together and make sure that you get some up towards the very edge too. The top, I should say. Okay, so let's do this. Let's grab our stem and figure out how much needs to go in there, just like that. Okay, and of course that's already tacky, which is nice. And then get that nice and centered on the back. Try to get that as close to the base as you can, and then just press. You can kind of squeeze it together a little bit. Press and hold that down to get that to stick, and be very patient here, because we are not just doing paper anymore. We've got the floral stem in there, and we want to make sure that that doesn't move. So before we do anything else to this piece, before we start bending it or warping it or training it, we're just going to get this in place and let it sit. Let it sit until it's completely cured. Okay, so there you go. And we could, if we wanted to right now, I'm going to put floral tape on this whole thing here just to kind of clean it up. You may not want to, or actually I think with the brown it's not horrible, but I would rather keep everything nice and green. So grab a little floral tape and try to get down to that stem as close as you can so that we can hide that brown. And I think this is okay to do while it's curing. You may want to wait a few extra moments, but I don't want to bore you. Okay, and then we just stretch that tape out and get that going all the way down our stem here. Just like that. Okay, and again, I think probably have a lot of excess stem here, but that's okay. It's better to have more than less, because you can always cut, but you can't add on unless you splice it together. But now we're just getting silly. Okay, so again, this one's going to be kind of drooping over, so I may as well just get the stem kind of going a little bit. Okay, and again, we'll kind of worry about training things in a little bit here, but just wanted to get the first one going. Okay, so there you go. You can see how that's starting to look. And I'm just going to flatten this out again so we can just lay it down on our table until everything is all done. Okay, so that's that. And really all we're doing is kind of repeating the same process and going through it for every little piece here. So I'll walk you through all of them, and then we can chit-chat a little bit. Okay, so again, fold this right in the center first, and then make a little paper airplane out of it, so that just the center is kind of, so you have a little mountain fold right in the center. Okay, and just like I did last time, oh there, I'm gonna grab my glue and just kind of fill the center with some glue for our stem to stay in place nicely. And then we'll hit the actual little wings of our little contraption here. I may have gone a little overboard with the glue in here, so I'm just going to wipe some of that away. There we go. And we'll take our stem, pop it right in there. Okay. And then find that center line. Just make sure you get it nice and center. Try to bring it down to the very edge as best as you can. And then go ahead and press it down and kind of squeeze it together like that. And that's going to hold nice and tight for us. It's perfect. It ain't going nowhere. It's nice too, because then the stem is nice and hidden. Everything looks nice and seamless. This is more of a, it's not one of those all-around sort of pieces where you can kind of enjoy it from all angles. It's going to be probably, maybe a 180-degree sort of thing. So it will definitely be a specific sort of orientation for it. Okay, so that looks nice. And while we're at it here, let's throw some floral tape on it. I'll just get that down to the bottom, right to the very base of that stem, as close as we can get. And then just wrap that around. It was a little difficult because it's in a tiny little nook there, but you'll get it. I have no doubt. And then we'll just wrap it. The paper's kind of unraveling here at the bottom, so just tightening it back up. And I've never done this one before. This is my first time doing any of these, but most of the time I'll just take a look at the prototypes that are given to me and just kind of reverse engineer what Diana did. Occasionally, if I have questions, I'll call her and say, hey, when you prototype this and put it together, what did you do and how'd you do it? Okay, so just moving right along to the next piece here. It's this piece here. We'll take the little back part, fold it in half, and then create the little mountain fold there at the top for the center here. Creating that little paper airplane, as I've called it, just like that. And the end of this, I didn't do a very good job of folding that, but it's fine. It just needs to be flat anyway, so it's fine. All right, so we'll grab our yeah, I think that's enough. Just making sure that the length of that was more than I needed, and I think it is. So we'll just throw a little bit of glue there in the center for the actual floral stem, and we'll get our glue on this guy here. Just like that. Get that inserted right in the center, just like that. And pop this right into place. Try to bring it down to the bottom as close as you can. And just press down all the way along the sides of our... Now, one thing I just realized is that you could technically put your floral tape on the floral stem first. I think those were kind of wonky. The rest of them will be a lot easier to apply floral tape to, so I'm not worried about it. Like this one doesn't have that little nook there at the bottom, so there's no obstacles, so to speak. Just trim that real quick. And we'll put our little floral tape on here, just to kind of make that look more seamless. There we go. And you can see how nicely that's already holding up for us. Okay. Yeah, and eventually, once this sets even more for us, actually, we could probably start folding this a little bit, because we're going to need to really bend this so that it droops nicely for us. It's going to droop even more than that, but I'm just kind of getting it prepped. But let this set, and actually, I've got a little area here at the top that did not set as well as I had hoped. So I'm just going to throw a little extra glue right here, and I'm going to press and hold that until it's really set. There we go. Kind of wants to pull away, so I just got to be careful. Okay, so that looks good. We'll put that off to the side for now. So we've got this really long piece here, and of course we've got the matching little apparatus. So just get that folded. Just make sure that you're creating that little mountain in the center. Just like that. Where's my mountain? There it is. Okay, just like that. And just as we did, I'm going to take and get our glue in the center, and then work the perimeters here. Just like that. Grab our stem, pop it right in there, just like that. Of course, make sure you're on the back side here. And this is going to be, this is your top, this little section that's got the two cutouts there. And this one does have some score marks on it, so kind of use that to make sure you get it nice and centered. And press that down and get it into place. I would focus probably on the top and the bottom first, because those are the most important, and then kind of work your way towards the center as well. Okay. Just like that. And there we go. All right, so that one's done. We'll let that one sit, and that just leaves a couple more here. Now remember, I've already done one of these, okay? I'm going to show you another one of these here right now, but just remember that I've already done this. So whatever I do here, you're just going to repeat on this one, because it's the same process. And I need some more floral stems. So I'm just going to bend that in half, give it a cut. Okay, now we'll flip that over. Now if this is becoming redundant for you as far as this process, you can definitely go ahead and fast forward. You can kind of scrub through the video. The next thing that I'm going to be doing that's different than what I'm doing now is actually putting together the ginger flower here, which is this guy here. So as soon as you see this coming up in the video, you can go ahead and resume the video. Okay, so let's get our glue. right into the center there and get our wire in there. I forgot to put floral tape on that last one, so I'll have to go back and do that. That's fine, it only takes a second. Okay, there we go. Make sure you're at the bottom, of course. Get it nice and centered. There's a little score mark here that you can follow to help you with that. And there you go. Just line it up, give it a press. Hold that in place. Let it set nicely. Okay, there we go. And I'll grab my floral tape and just get this one done real quick. So that just leaves, in my case, I've just got 2 more little pieces that are exactly like this one. You're going to have 3 more pieces because, again, I already did that one. So I think it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing crazy about this. For those of you that have made our flowers in the past, the process, I mean, because of this little contraption here, it's a little bit different, but for the most part, you can see how easy it is and how quick it goes together. I think the assembly of this is probably quicker than the inking. Okay, so there we go. Got that. We'll put that off to the side. This one's done already. Just make sure that you do that. Okay, and that just leaves these 2. And then we're down to our little ginger plant. And then at that point, we're ready to just start kind of putting everything into our planter and working on our arrangement. All right, so remember there's 2 sizes here. One's a little bit smaller, one's a little bit bigger. So when you find and grab the piece that holds it all together, make sure you get the correct one. If you mess up, it's okay. I don't think it's gonna make or break the project, but we kind of have them at specific sizes for a reason, so. All right, let's get our glue there in the center for the floral stem. Pop that right in. And get your glue on the little wings here, up at the top as well. There we go. Okay. And again, this one's got a little score mark there. So do your best to get that centered. Well, trying to get that floral stem as close to the base as possible. We don't want this little contraption here hanging over the actual plant. Or the leaf, I should say. Okay, there we go. That looks nice. And finish it off with our floral tape, and that just leaves one more. And then the cool thing about the little ginger plant is that we've got it kind of labeled for you, so it shouldn't be that tough figuring out what goes where. It's just a matter of getting it on there and spacing it correctly. Those are going to be our, I wouldn't even call it a challenge, just our goal. It's not really challenging. It's fun. Okay, get that on there. There we go. That looks nice. I forgot to put floral tape on this guy here, so I'm gonna do that real quick. And, all right, so we're down to our last little leaf here. And then we can start working on our little ginger plant. Okay. So just as we've done multiple times now, I'll just get this little backing piece folded, get our glue, and just get it right in the middle there, add our little floral stem, and then our glue for each of the little wings here, just like that. And remember, this one does have the little score marks there to help you place it nice and straight, just like that. And I'll just kind of squeeze it all the way up and down, making sure specifically that the bottom and top are really in place, just so that this thing doesn't come apart at all. Okay, so there we go. And finish that off with a little floral tape. There we go. And just wrap it. Oops, kind of slid out of place, that's okay. Oh, hey there. There we go. Sometimes if this stuff sits around too long, it loses its sticky. It seems to be okay now. All right, so let's get ourselves kind of mentally prepared here for something different. It's not tough. Okay, so actually this is a 5/16 inch diameter dowel, and typically they start off at about 12 inches long. I trimmed off just an inch. I may trim off a little bit more depending on how things kind of work out after we get everything assembled. But onto the actual flower, and what we want to do, and I've mentioned this before, there's a numbering scheme on some of these, most of them except for these three. And what we want to do is find this piece that has this little tab on it, and this one has just a single Roman numeral 1. So grab that, and then there's one with a Roman numeral 2, and then there's a 3, and then the 4 is basically 4 little dashes in the form of a square. And that's our number 4. So we're going to need those first. Okay, now we want our flower, once we get it all finished, to be about 7 inches from top to bottom. Okay, so I'm just going to mark the 7-inch mark here, just so that I can kind of keep my eye on it, so I know where I'm going. I'm going to put some floral tape on this when all's said and done, but just so that I know where 7 inches is. That's just a little helpful little thing that you can do. Okay, so before we get started here, I'm going to take and I'm going to wrap this once with some floral tape. And that's going to give me a little bit of extra thickness, but it's also going to help the paper kind of stick better once we're gluing it, because, well, it's pretty slippery. This dowel, basically, is what I was trying to say. And what I'm doing right now is I'm marking the 7-inch mark, because the actual floral part is going to start here and end here from top to bottom. So we want to make sure that we kind of have a good idea as to where that 7-inch mark is. And also with this dowel, you want to go ahead and you want to cut an inch off of it. It's usually 12 inches long. I'm going to just trim off 1 inch, and I'm going to take my floral tape and just bring it down right to that 7-inch mark. I'm going to grab a little knife and just cut off 1 inch of that. Okay, so we can start with our first piece here, and you're going to take I've got a larger dowel here, and I just kind of took that dowel and I kind of rolled this petal around to make it nice and round, so it's kind of cupping in on itself. And the dowel itself, you want to position this pretty much right at the height where these two sides kind of join. Okay, you don't want it sticking out all the way up here. You don't want it too low, because then it's not going to have anything to hold on to. Pretty much right at where these two sides join, and you want to wrap it nice and tight so that this little tab here is actually almost making contact with this side. So it's nice and thin right here like that. Okay, so I need to unroll this real quick so I can add some glue to my tab. But that is going to be our first little petal here, and this is petal number 1. And I put way too much glue on there, so I'm going to just hit that with my finger a bit. Okay, just pop that right in, wrap it nicely. What's going on now? There we go. Just pull it in on itself like that and hold that in place. Let it set. Just like that. Okay, and hold that. Don't let go until it's for sure sticking. And there we go. There is our first little petal. All right, so we're gonna grab pieces 2, 3, and 4, and I'm gonna give them a slight little curl right at the end. Let me grab another dowel here. I'll use this one here. Okay, now I want this pattern out, so I am just literally going to just flare it out just a tiny little bit, just like that. We can always kind of finesse it back if we need to, and can actually take this and kind of curl it in on itself a little bit and then finesse that out just to kind of give it a little bit of a dip there so it's not so straight and flat. Okay, and then the idea here is what we want to do is have it at about this height. Okay, and we're going to stagger this. So take a look at roughly where I'm placing that. And we're going to stagger it. There's going to be 3 of them all going around at the same height here. And you know what, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this with floral tape. So just get your floral tape right to the base of this guy here and just wrap that. And that'll do. Okay, try to make sure that it's standing up nicely, and if you need to, kind of curl this back a little bit. Okay, just like that. We'll grab our next piece here. And curl that one back. Just slightly. As it kind of progresses down the plant, it's going to curl even more. Okay, so we get that one about here. It's kind of overlapping its neighbor, but it's also at the same height. Okay, so you want to try to keep that at the same height, like that. And I'm going to just get my floral tape on that piece. Try to keep it straight. If it's slightly higher or slightly lower, it's not the end of the world, but try to keep them kind of on the same plane. Okay, and then this guy here is going to go in this section here, pretty much at the same height as the rest of them, but let's go ahead and give that one a little bit of a train, like that. And pop that guy right into place. Try to keep it somewhat on the same height. And let's wrap that. So just take a look at my positioning visually. You can always take a look at the photo too, if that helps, to help you determine roughly how high to place this next piece. Okay. So there we go. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 in place. This is piece number 5. Okay, it's got the 4 dashes in a square shape with a single dash next to it. That's your number 5. Okay, and we're going to train this one a little bit, mostly just the tips. Okay, just kind of like this. Just training the tips a little bit. Okay, and we also, well, we need to wrap this around. There's a little tab here, so go ahead and make sure that you fold the tab. And we're going to take this piece and we want to offset it a little bit. Okay, so find one of the previous little leaves, or petals I should say, and just offset it. So this one here, for example, and actually let me take my dowel and make this more round so that it's kind of ready to wrap around the dowel and we don't crease it. Just like that. Of course, you're going to work that little fold back again. Okay, so you'll notice that on this piece here, we have a tab, but we also have some of these little tabs down here. This part is what's mostly going to wrap around the dowel. So you definitely want to get glue on these pieces here initially. And of course, we're going to put some floral tape on here as well. So that's going to help hold it as well, but you may as well get a little bit of glue on those pieces as well. And then don't go down too much with this piece, okay? You want to just go just slightly below the previous layer there. And where am I here? Let me go right about there. Just slightly below the previous layer there. Okay, and hold that in place. So far, so good. And I am going to take and wrap this just to get it to hold nicely for us. And I'm going to start here right where the tab is and just bring that down. I really want this piece to not go anywhere as I'm continuing to add more layers. So as I begin wrapping this, it helps to kind of begin at the bottom where there's already a little bit of a tackiness. And then you can kind of work your way back up and then maybe back down again. There we go. Okay. So far so good. So that was piece number 5. Now we need to find piece number 6. So we got a 4 and then a 1 and a 1. And we're gonna do the same thing with this. We're gonna take and just kind of train the tips out just slightly. Maybe that was too much. Okay. And then I'm going to grab my dowel and kind of train this a little bit so that it more easily wraps around the dowel, especially right here. Okay, and then pull those out again. Okay, let's get our glue on the tab as well as these little strips down here, these little long teeth. Okay, and again, this one's going down a bit. Not a lot, but enough. Okay, so wrap that down there so that that tab can reach over. And then once we have that, kind of adjust it so it is offset from the previous layer. Okay, so just bring that down, offset it a bit. There we go. That looks about right. There we go. Okay, just hold that down at the base there until you're certain that it's set, and you can see what that's starting to kind of look like. And of course, we're going to go back in and play with the little petals up here once all said and done. But I'm going to grab my floral tape. I'm just going to tape that down, make sure it ain't going nowhere. There we go. Okay, and we are on to piece number, in this case, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then there's piece 8 and then the last 3. Okay, so same as we did, take my larger dowel and kind of get it thinking round instead of flat, since it's got to wrap around that dowel. Okay, there we go. Fold that tab. Let's get our glue on the tab as well as the teeth. Okay. And get that wrapped around. And once you have it kind of connected, you can kind of twirl it and adjust it to get it into the right spot. Oh, I forgot to train these. That's okay though. And I need to bring this layer up a bit. It's a little too high or too low. Let's stagger this a little bit. And I'd say that is about the right height there. Let me twist that one more time just to stagger it better. And where's my other dowel here? I forgot to pull these back. Okay, so just holding that in place. And I think that's about the right height. All right, so that is looking pretty solid so far. And while you're watching this video and you're putting this together, just kind of look at the tips of each layer and where they coincide with the previous layer for a better idea of where exactly to stagger them and place them as far as height goes. Okay, if you're off by a smidge, I don't think it's really going to make a huge difference, but try to stay close to what you're seeing here in the video. Okay, it's looking pretty good so far. And again, we'll finesse everything else later on as we get towards the bottom. Okay, so next layer here, and you know what I realized I did as I'm assembling this? I put my floral tape down at the 7-inch mark, but I think I did it on the wrong side. No, I didn't. I didn't do 7 inches. I must have measured wrong, but that's okay. That's just kind of a guide, but obviously that failed me. Okay, so next layer here, and you want to get your glue on the tab as well as on these guys here. And again, this is layer number 8. Okay, so again, I forgot to train these petals back. You can always go back and do that after the fact. Sometimes it's just nice to get that done so you have a better idea of how things are going to look as you're getting everything placed. So take that tab at the bottom, fold it over the other end, hold that together, and just kind of slightly adjust it and move it until it looks like it's in the right spot. You want it kind of offset. You don't want it here like that on top of that one. You want to kind of offset it a little bit to put it in between the last two from the previous layer. And I'd say that is probably right about there. All right, so that last layer, the number 8 layers, all in place. And that just leaves this layer here, these last 3. Okay, and those are all gonna be, pretty much on the same plane, so to speak. I'm gonna go ahead and train these a little bit just to get them ready to be round. And we're going to take and just curl the top back just a tiny bit. We'll finesse that a little bit more later on. Okay, but that's going to go around like that, roughly. So take a look and measure before you put your final layer on and see if from the tip to the base here, this is the 12-inch mark right here, the tip. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exactly 7 inches. Okay, and I don't think, you don't need to worry about the math so much while you're doing this, because I think as long as you stagger them, just as I have slightly each time, you're gonna end up at about 7 inches. So it's not, you don't need to, constantly get the ruler out every time. Just use your eyes, use your best judgment to figure out exactly where each little petal is gonna go. And obviously you can see here, I'm taking this one and I'm staggering it and putting it right in between these other 2, just to kind of close that gap off and make it seem and look and feel just more natural. And now I'm just taking my floral tape and I'm just taping that down. There's no need to put glue on there. This will hold it in place just fine. Okay, so there's that last little leaf there. And again, now that it's in place, you can definitely take and just kind of peel that tip back a little bit, and you can see how pretty that's starting to look. Okay, so that just leaves 2 more. And I'm gonna just kind of get that used to being round. And we'll stagger that one there. Just wrap it around nice and tight. You got the 2 little points that kind of come together there at the bottom. That looks pretty good. And just take and just wrap that around. Just wrap some floral tape around that, I should say. Make sure you got it in the right spot. There we go. Just wrapping that down. Whoops, kind of moved on me. It's okay. Just nudge it back if it does that. And there we go. Let me take this guy here. Let's peel that back. There we go. I think I did a pretty good job with this thing. I never made one of these. It isn't too bad. All right, so got that one nice and rolled up. And let's find the third little area here. That looks about right. Okay, that tip is definitely a little more difficult to wrap there, or to train, just because of how tight this one is, I should say. And let's make sure that we got this in the right spot. There's one, there's two. Wait, is that the same one? Yeah. All right, so we're putting this one here roughly. Okay, that looks good. Just stagger it, almost like a tripod, where you've got them spaced out as evenly as possible. Okay, but pretty much on the same plane. If it's a little bit higher or lower, it's not the end of the world. It's still gonna look great. Especially with all this beautiful inking that we did. Okay, well, I'd say that looks pretty dang cool. Look at that. All right, well, now it's just a matter of getting this thing in our planter and then, you know, putting the rest of the leaves in and just shaping it so that everything looks nice. So let's do that. Okay, so hopefully I mentioned this already. If I haven't, just remember to cut off 1 inch on this 12-inch dowel. Okay, and I don't think that I'm gonna need to put floral tape on the rest of this, because as I put this in, and just make sure that you get it nice and centered. I think that it's gonna go all the way down to the bottom. Yep, so that was just about right. Okay, let's make sure that that's nice and centered, standing up straight. It is. I'm also going to put some nice moss in here after the fact, so take a look at the final photo to see if we've done anything else to it. I think that's really going to be the only other thing that we'll do. So again, take a look at it from all angles. Make sure that it's nice and straight up and down. Okay, there we go. All right, and then figure out which side is going to be your front. Okay, so take a look at your planter, find your best side. That's my best side, and then take the plant itself and kind of rotate it. Figure out which side is going to be your front. I think that's going to be my front. That looks the best. You can kind of see that little angle there. And now it's just time to take the rest of our little floral pieces here and get them into place. Okay, so it's completely up to you. I'll show you what I'm doing here. Okay, so let's start working from the inside out. Okay, the inside is going to feature these leaves here. Okay, and we want to kind of, you know, try to make it as unique as we can. There's going to be one small one that I'm going to put up in the front here, but let's start with this dark one here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to train this. I'll train the tip so it kind of comes forward like that. But then I'm going to take and I'm going to train this part down. I'll train this part back up a little bit, and if you need to, you can kind of bend this back a little bit. By now, this should all be in pretty good shape. Okay, so again, find your front, and then I'm going to pop this in pretty darn close to this guy here. Okay, and actually, this is going to need to go almost all the way down, so I have way too much here. I'm going to trim some more. I think I brought my wire cutters inside. That's why they're not handy, but I've got some old scissors that I don't mind using. Okay, so we're going to get that in like that, roughly. Okay. That looks pretty good like that. Okay, maybe we can bring it up just a tad. Okay. And like that. All right, so now I'm going to take this small one here. This is the lighter green. It's a little bit smaller, and I'm going to go ahead and train this so it hangs like that. Okay, and I'm going to Bend this so that it kind of droops a little bit. Just like that. And again, we can always go back in and kind of mess with this stuff later on if we're not liking how things are looking. But I am going to cut this even shorter because I don't need all that. Okay, and I'm going to put this one just underneath, right by the front. Let's see here, hold on. That's my front. This guy's going this way. The idea is to try to make this look as full as possible with the materials that we've created, okay? And I may just kind of flare this out this way too. So don't worry so much about trying to mimic exactly what I'm doing here, like to a T. Yours can look a little bit different, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, okay? So that's going in there like that. And I'm leaving just enough room there so when I put the moss in, it still looks like it's nice and full and natural. Okay, so there's that one. Now we're gonna grab the other one here, and you know what, this one actually, I'm gonna train this one back all the way, like that. Maybe a little bit less, but that's fine. Not the end of the world. And I'm gonna stagger this one over here. It's going to go like that. So we're kind of creating like a border, or yeah, kind of like a border of these little plants or these leaves around the flower right now. And then this guy here, this guy is also going to kind of complete the border, except he's been a little more droopy lately. So we're going to make him droop a lot more. He's going to be kind of coming off of the plant or almost resting on it. Okay, so let's do that. Let's train this guy. Let's give him a little bit of a droop. Maybe he even comes up a little bit and then really droops like that. And I'm gonna pop him in right here. Have him coming out. Yeah, let's see, maybe bring this one up a little bit and this one coming out like that, but let's jam them in a little more. Okay, there we go. All right, so that looks nice. All right, so next up, you can take this guy here, okay, and this guy's gonna be drooping. Well, these naturally, you'll want to kind of train so that they curve in a little bit. I think that's what gravity would do to these leaves a little bit. So just go up and down this entire little piece here. I think the front, we can maybe even have that swing up a little bit maybe, or droop down is fine. Okay, and now try to kind of bend this so that you have a very natural looking drooping effect here. Okay, and just take a look at it and see if it looks like it's just kind of nice and round, sort of. I don't know how else to explain it, but just pretend you were a plant and you had to droop a little bit and what that would look like, and just kind of bend your floral wire however you need to achieve that look. Okay, now this guy is gonna go pretty much right in this little area here. Try to get that in as close as you can to the center. Okay. And I actually want this underneath the previous layer. So these leaves here that we did first, I want those to be on top of this layer here. And I probably should have cut that a little bit, and I'm going to, because it's a pain to have to stick it in so far there. There we go. Okay, let me find that hole that I already created. And do your best to not crease anything while we're getting these things in there. It's a little difficult to grab these things. Oops. All right, that's getting there. I need this to droop a little bit more, so I'm just going to take my dowel and start to angle it a little bit down, just so it looks more natural. Okay, that looks good, I think, from this angle. You can take a look at it from this angle. So far, so good. Okay. All right, so now we grab, we've got two of these. One's smaller, one's larger. I'm going to take the smaller one and kind of put it up in the front here. And with this guy here, we can take and actually, you know, curl some of these individual little sections here, either up or down, just so it's not so flat. And maybe even up here a little bit. Just give it a little life. And then here, I can curl that up. Maybe bring that down a tad. Just add some dimension. Let the light play with it slightly. Okay, there you go. That's a lot better. Okay, now I am going to start curving this a little bit right here. And then maybe you want to curve it here just a little bit too. Like up through this little area. Just a tad. There we go. Okay, like that. Okay, and then I'm going to train this down so it kind of just droops more naturally, looks more natural. There we go. Okay, that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is take and cut this. I don't need all this on here. I bet you $100 that if I was to do this again, it would probably not look the same because of the way that it was ultimately arranged. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what makes each of these pieces unique. Okay, I think that looks good. It's pretty round. Okay, so I'm going to pop that right in here. And it might be right where it needs to go. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, well, once I fill that in with the moss, it's going to look great. Okay. I'd say that's pretty good there. I don't want to overdo it and warp anything. Yep. All right, I'm very happy with that. Now we're going to take this guy here, and now what we're going to do is kind of fill in the back. Okay, so hopefully you can see it from the other camera angle. We're going to add these two large pieces to kind of fill in the back. We've got something going on here, we've got something here, we've got something here, and it's all playing very well, and the arrangement's looking pretty awesome actually. So this guy here, we're going to just do a little bit of tweaking to him by just kind of training this a little bit just to give it some extra life before we place it in there. We don't want it just to be completely flat. So kind of train some of these petals in. Petals, leaves. I kind of like this one going the other way. Okay. There we go. And again, this one's going to be mostly just straight because we're trying to just kind of fill in the background a little bit. You know what? I'm not going to cut off too much of this because this one is going to be a little bit higher than the rest of the stuff that's in there. And I wish I had my wire cutters. That's okay though. Okay, so just take this piece and just pop it right in there. About let's see how this is starting to look here. I'm going to adjust this guy. And we'll pop him in about that height, I think. Maybe have him coming back a tad. Okay, that looks pretty good. So that just leaves this guy here. And with our dowel, I'm gonna take and kind of just do something with these so they're not so this piece is not so flat. Bring this in, maybe curl this up a little bit, like that. Curl this edge up a little bit, like that. Maybe bring this one back. Bring this one forward. Bring that like that. Like that. There we go. So you can see how that adds to it nicely. And then I am going to take off just a little bit because this is a huge, huge leaf. Okay, and we'll pop that one right back here, opposite side. Okay. And it may actually have been easier for me to put my moss in first, but that's okay. I work around it. Okay, so I've got the final pieces in place here, and again, each one is going to be unique. So take a look at the final photo. I'll try to get a couple different angles of it so you guys can see. And maybe I'll even include a top-down photo so you can see how everything is placed inside the planter. Definitely make it your own. Can't wait to see what yours looks like. But I'm actually, especially from this point of view, so you've got about, what, 270 degrees that you can actually display this thing, and it'll look nice from the back. Obviously, you've got all of the little mechanisms that we created to hold everything together showing. So you want to probably put this in the corner of a room or somewhere against a wall for optimal viewing. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the process. If you did, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. It lets me know that you enjoy crafting with me. And if you make this or anything from our new tropical bundle, we'd love to see it. So join us in the official group on Facebook by doing a search at the top of your Facebook for Dreaming Tree Group, and join myself and the 13,000 plus dreamers that inspire us daily. So thank you for hanging out with me, and I look forward to crafting with you again. Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.